I was looking around for a traveling man, and I've got a guy that is chewing up highways all across America. Larry Goldberg, so thrilled to have you from your hotel room in where?
Quartzsite, Arizona.
They have a big, don't they have a big charger there? A big
They
supercharger?
have two very big chargers here. They have one 50 plus field and one 20 plus field. And it's interesting. I stopped at the 20 plus field, which is, I guess, the older one. And then the 50 plus field is kind of down the road and across the road. And it was packed. The one I was in, there was just myself and one other guy. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to visit the other one tomorrow morning to see what's the attraction there. But I will say this one is supplied by solar. And the most important thing of all, I took a picture. I was going to show the picture, but I guess I haven't got it teed up. There was a nice, clean garbage bin.
Oh, a nice clean garbage bin.
2 feet close. I mean, that's one of the problems of these charging networks. No garbage bin. I mean, anyway, I've been traveling in 100 plus degree heat, 109 degrees the other day in Austin, and it's hot. I mean, all across Texas is huge, Randy. I drove for days and it was just Texas, 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 Texas. It's gigantic
Yes.
and hot
Yes.
and very,
Yes.
and I had a puncture.
So, in all of these travels, now you mentioned it was hot everywhere. We know there's been this heat dome over the Southwest all summer. It's just crazy. We've experienced it, even in Riverside. We're part of that heat dome. It's been 105, 106, 107, 109. So we get it. But how did the car handle in all that heat?
I mean, it just beautiful. It's just I'm sure it reduced my range somewhat. You don't care. You don't do the sums. You
Yeah.
don't do the calculate. The machine just handles it. The car did great. I've just had a really, really good time. I've got some notes to give to Tesla about the design of the X, but and I will give them the notes.
So Larry, we have admitted on air before that we're both really old. We're
Yeah.
leading edge baby boomers. You're even more leading bleeding edge than I am.
I just make the baby boom about 3 months.
So it isn't normal for people as old as you to be driving. You told me you're putting in 10, 11, 12-hour days behind the wheel, day
Yeah,
after day.
yeah. I am, and it's great. I mean, I really don't experience any. I mean, I turn on my book on tape. I drive. I sometimes turn it off because the scenery is just so magnificent. And the road stops are really interesting. And I got to see quite a few friends on the way. Austin was really terrific. I saw some of my dearest friends, and it was fun. And it's nice to, exchange views about Tesla,
Of course.
SpaceX. I did go to SpaceX. I went to see the lithium refinery. I went to see SpaceX. I went back to the, Texas factory, the Austin factory. Interesting. Interesting. Um, yeah, I just enjoyed it very much. This country is so magnificent, and the drive to Texas from Raleigh, where I live, I took US 10, which goes along the Gulf Coast. I think it's one of the most beautiful drives in the world
Wow.
because you're constantly over water. You're over these inlets and these, yeah, and these marshes. And when the sun rises, I get up with the sun, and then I also watch the sunset. Um, it's it's magical. I love driving.
And you said that
And
the FSD has been part of the delight. I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Is that you can drive 8 or 9 hours, 10 hours a day with FSD, and you feel like you haven't even done anything except sit in your easy chair.
that's exactly right. My job is to keep touching the yoke, get all
That's
the
your
work
job.
done. That's my job. I mean, and I mean, you do have to keep your eye on the road because it really, nags you, and you have to do that. But I have to say, it's just such a pleasure. It is. It makes the difference. I don't think I could drive it. No, I couldn't drive it. Not at my age. I mean, I've been on the road a week now, and well, more than a week actually. But of course, I was in Austin for 3 days. But driving day after day after day, I get up in the hotel in the morning and I'm rearing to go. I want to get my Starbucks coffee and get on the road.
So while you've been doing all this driving, I'm sure that you've completely ignored the financial world and the Tesla news and the stocks and all that stuff. You just kind of ignored all that while you're just driving around the country, right, Larry?
Not exactly.
So it's been a pretty newsworthy. If you've been on the road for over a week, you've been on the road during this is one of the most newsworthy times for Tesla and to some extent for the economy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thoughts thoughts about the last week?
It's been a very active week. Very active week. The stock's gone nowhere, which is pretty much par for the course. And I did get involved in a bit of a debate today about Elon, and I'll tell you one thing about Elon. It is amazing to me how many people know better than Elon. Everybody and his brother is there to give Elon advice or to tell Elon why he's doing everything wrong and why he does everything wrong. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very active week of news. I guess the book, Walter Isaacson's book, is leaking in. Well, it's dripping out in
Dripping out,
very,
yes.
very chunky bits, and everybody's getting very excited about it. I'm interested. I was very interested to see the news about the next gen car
Yes.
being made in Austin. Of course, that's a very important news. Now, I kind of called it. I did post last week that I thought Mexico was. I didn't think they were going to move forward in Mexico, and I think it's a combination of they made up their minds to build it, which makes all the sense in the world. I said this is exactly what I said. I said they're going to be building it with Optimus anyway. Tom Zhu said a third of the labor force is going to be Optimus, and they're going to be highly automated. It's a critical new production method. Much better for them to do it in Texas. Much better for them to do, and the labor differential is not going to be great at all. And so I think that this is very important to do it in Texas. And I'm very pleased they're going to do it in Texas. And so I'm positive about that news. Very positive.
Yeah. So and then when it came, so the as the market was developing during the week, and we had all this news coming in about Tesla, and it seemed like every day we'd have a positive, we'd have a negative. But it seemed like on balance this last week, we had way more positive than negative on Tesla. Overall for the week, down just a little bit, but we were up for the week last week. So you could even say for the last 2 weeks, we've gone nowhere. With all of that news, it's kind of interesting. But
Randy, this stock is it's the plaything of retail investors. And there's no telling, where they're going from day to day. And today was option expiry, Friday, options are expiring, so you can't tell direction, on this week-to-week basis. And right now, the stock is looking for direction. What it's looking for is the Cybertruck
Right.
launch. And that's it. I've said again and again and again on this show that the only thing that counts between now and next year is the Cybertruck launch. But I will say that I think we're going to see amazing figures out of China.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it.
They have managed this launch of Highland so much better than they managed the X and S refresh.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it seems that they've got this huge export shipment going to Europe. They nevertheless delivered 18,000 cars 13,000 cars last week. I think we're going to have a blowout quarter. And I think that they're being very coy about the quarter. That's what I think.
So at least one person reported, and then Brian over at Next Big Future had on his blog that they have a pretty substantial number of Model 3s, the Highland, being produced per week starting Monday. I forget what the number was, but it was.
Well, did you see the picture of them on the dock being exported?
Oh no, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, they have a very large export shipment of Highland on its way out. That was the key. That's what I was keying in on.
I see. So I thought that the Highland, of course, I think you and I may have already talked about the Highland once, but I thought the Highland is incredible. If I was in the market for a car, I would definitely be in a market for that car.
I agree. I agree. Beautiful.
It's a beautiful.
I'm going to change. My Model 3 was originally my car, and the X was my wife's car.
I see.
She found it too big for herself, so she's driving the 3. She loves it very much. But I'm going to change it out for her because that's such a beautiful looking car. Want that car in my garage.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's beautiful looking, as well as all the upticks. Somebody said today, I thought they hit it out of the park when they said this. It's as if Tesla listened to their customers and fixed every single thing people were complaining about. Oh, really?
I mean, they're very well aware of, what they were able to put into the 3 and what they were not able to put into 3. They're very well aware of it. And by the way, it's true of the Y, it's true of the X too. Even the refreshed X, there's a lot could be done. I'm in the middle of inventing a new sunshade for the X. I figured it all out. It's going to be magnificent because can you see how I'm sunburnt?
Oh yeah, look at you. Yeah, yeah.
It's because of there's an enormous amount of window, and that's very pleasant when you're driving. It adds to the experience. Right. But unfortunately, they haven't solved the sunshade yet, so that's a big issue.
Got it. All right. So the Highland, if it, we're assuming they're going to be able to crank out a lot of those out of Shanghai. We're assuming at some point it will be available in the United States. We've all had this debate all week as to whether there's going to be an Osborne effect and how long it'll take them before they're starting to ship out of Fremont. And then there's the question, which I've had various people answer in various different ways. What happens if it really is a blowout? What happens if it hits big numbers? And multiple people have had multiple opinions on that, Larry. I'll give you my current feel. Okay. I think you can switch the Model Y lines in Fremont fairly easily because it's almost all the same stuff. So I think you might be able to put more Model 3. No, you can't, huh? No.
You can't switch those lines because it's different. It's a structural battery pack. No, it's not a structural battery pack. Actually, it's castings. They have the front or the rear. They have the front castings. So, I mean, what do I know? I don't know, but maybe I'll be able to tell you in a week or two.
Okay. Are you going to get privileged information? Huh?
No,
So
no, it won't be privileged information, but I may be able to tell you in a week or two.
I see.
But in all seriousness, these are, these are tactical issues. These are not important issues. What's important is number one, the Cybertruck. Number two, the Cybertruck. And number three, the Cybertruck.
But Larry, I keep saying on my channel all the time that one Lathrop is 20% of the volume of all of Tesla's business this year. One Lathrop is 20 billion, and all of Tesla will be 100 billion this year. And in Shanghai, now you're talking about 40% of all of Tesla this year. Seems like somebody would finally figure out that maybe the energy storage business is going to be an important thing.
We don't know what the revenue recognition rhythm is.
Right.
So what you say is true, and I don't doubt it at all. I'm very, very high on Lathrop. I'm going to go drive past Lathrop. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting. By the way, I did drive past Lucid today.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Yeah, their factory. I mean, talk about a loser. Oh my God.
Well, he's already solved his problem. He's paying himself a king's ransom.
He took Saudi's money home, and I mean, I hope they don't come after him when that company falls. I just hope they don't.
Oh,
I shouldn't say that. That's a terrible thing to say, but don't get that company, and I don't get that guy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
But So what you're saying about I've written about this, and I'm very high on the energy business. Damodaran, the guy who does valuations, Professor, he did a valuation of Tesla, and he just said, I ignored the energy business because it's never going to be much. And I wrote a whole long article, a long thread about that, completely refuting what he said, with all the numbers. I didn't get a response from him. Who cares? But the point that I'm making is that I did the numbers, and the numbers are staggering. Now, whether those margins are going to hold and for how long and what they're going to be, these are unknowns, but it is going to be a very large business.
Yeah, a very large business indeed.
Yeah.
So and then Larry, I know that you don't think that the charging business will be important. But in the news, one more thing in the news is 2,000 Hiltons with 20,000 charging stands.
Yeah.
That was kind of a surprise. That came out of nowhere. I mean, it
didn't come out of nowhere for me, because I've switched. I used to go to. I have a somewhere here. I have it actually. I have this. I don't know, titanium with Marriott, because I spent so many hotel nights in Marriott, and it's for life. But I've switched my allegiance on the road.
Oh wow!
Because so many Hiltons, a particular brand of Hiltons, have got charging stations. They already have. So, I mean, this is kind of formalizing it across the whole network, across all the brands. And so I'm not surprised. It's very important. And as I said, and as we disagreed, this is going to be a very important business for Tesla.
All right. So I did, Larry. You may not have seen, because I'm pretty sure you don't watch every one of my videos every single day.
very tough.
I know you try. I know you really
I
try.
do. I do. I do.
So anyway, but I did say the other day, I went to a lot of trouble to talk about there's two levels of importance. Okay. One is the actual income from those charging stations, which should get bigger and bigger as they go to where they're got free energy, and they've got some additional services that they'll be providing at those locations. All that stuff will add up to make it more and more profitable. And every little dollar doesn't hurt. But there's a whole nother multiple levels of importance. And I think the one that I want to concentrate on is the brand. So we already know that Tesla's brand is way up, is growing in its perception by people all over the world. But you drive into one of these new Tesla charging facilities with their canopies, and they're beautiful, they're laid out nicely, they always work, et cetera, et cetera. Every time somebody does that, it's a bump for the brand. Every time.
Yeah, and that and $3 a share earnings in 5 years' time. In 5 years. That's not bupkis. That's real money.
It's not nothing. That's right. That's right.
So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And we'll see real money coming from this business. They're already doing well out of it,
right?
And the rate at which they have the rate of increase of the rollout actually makes my numbers look a little bland. I may have to update my numbers.
Actually, I had numbers we had in the mission, in Elon Musk's mission. We had read, or Elon had said actually, that he was predicting 100,000 charging stations by the end of 2024. That doesn't look like that's in the cards now, if they're only at 50 today. That was announced, I think, today or yesterday.
I'll go back to my numbers, but I think it's going to be 100,000. I think the rate of the build out right now is just staggering. And they're building out at 2 or 3 times the rate that I originally estimated.
I see. Okay. All right. So you still think they could get close, or potentially be around 100,000 by the end of next year?
I'm almost certain they're going to be there. They're over 50 right now. And but I'll look at it and try and get a bit of handle on it now. But I think they'll get to 100,000. The factory, they have 2 factories now. I think they're going to add another factory in Berlin. So I think they're going to blow it out of the water. What sped it up is that they're getting a lot of contracts now with this with the IRA Act.
Yes. Yeah.
So that sped it up quite dramatically.
Right. Yes, and apparently, I don't quite understand government systems where they're willing to pay triple or quadruple the price of something just so they can spread the work around. That never worked for me when I was bidding on government contracts. You either got the job or you didn't, based on whether you were the lowest bidder with a product that could pass the tests. I mean, and I was selling the Army, the Navy, the U.S. government. I mean,
it's a whole different world to the one that we used to, and the one that makes sense. I saw today in passing, I was going to clip it for our meeting tonight, and I didn't because it was on the road, and I'd have to fish it out again. But somebody did an analysis of where we are in terms of earnings over a period of time. And, I think the bottom line is that government spending has reached a point now that it's going to impact earnings of every corporation across, the US. And it's going to, we're being crowded out. The rate the rate of government expenditure hasn't slowed down
Right.
on the pandemic.
No.
It's going up, and we're being crowded out, and it's going to be a crisis of our time. Well, of our children's time, really, because we're done.
Well, that is one of the subjects, of course, that I spend the most time on my show is the bond market.
Yeah.
I will tell you that up until about 5 years ago, I couldn't have cared anything about the bond market. I loved equities. That's what I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I get. And the bond market was just boring and slow, and who cared? And I had a friend of mine. I lived in West LA for 50 years, and I had a friend of mine over there who lived in the nicest part of West LA in a very nice home with really nice artwork on his walls, who was a bond player, and he made, big time fortunes in bonds. But I didn't even ask him for advice because it was just boring. I didn't care. But all of a sudden, I'm really kind of tuned into it. About 5 years ago, somebody put out quite a number of books and papers on this future problem of the credit, the inability to be able to fund all the credit that was going to be demanded. And right now, last week was actually kind of an interesting week where we're starting to see that crowding out that you're talking about, because the corporations were coming in with bigger troughs of required corporate bond renewals a week after the Treasury had just come in with a bunch of troughs trying to suck up as much money as they could. And then you've got countries all over the world who are competing for that same dollar.
And liquidity. Yeah.
Illiquidity. Where's it all going to come from? And all of those are fighting with the equity market, because when you can get 5.5% guaranteed from an absolutely certain, as certain as it can get resource, why are you going to go out and buy?
Andy, you and I should keep this as a secret.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, if you take all the guys who are retiring, and I'm finally retiring, well.
Oh, no.
In a sense, I'm retiring. I mean,
yeah, right.
this is great times for us, just in time for us, because, we've invested in some stock, but this is a great place to park money for a long time to come,
Yeah, you can even get 30-year bonds right now at a darn good rate. Yeah, so yes, and of course, not only is it good in terms of the top line, the interest you're going to make, but if the rates come down, if they come down, the underlying bond goes up. So it seems like it's a potentially very, very good time for the bond market.
Yes, big question is what happens if it goes up very significantly?
That is the big question, isn't it? Now, on that matter, though, I've really been studying this. I mean, I just spend so much time on this whole business of inflation. You and I have been both been through it a bunch of times. We've talked about it on the show before. We've been through inflation. We've been through after inflation. We've been through high interest rates and low interest rates, all this stuff. I'm looking for the inflation, Larry. I'm trying. Now we got oil, but I don't think the Saudis are going to let it go much over 100. I think they're going to cut it off around 100. And I was just having that conversation with Jeff Lutz earlier today, and he and I are kind of agreeing, if it gets to 100, 102, it's not going to change the picture. It's not going to cause inflation to go back up. So I don't know where it's going to come from, Larry. There's no evidence of another inflationary, the beginning of a new inflation. And you know how I feel about productivity. The productivity numbers have got to go up. There's just no way that year over year, productivity is not going to continue to be really, really good in the next few prints, because we're going against such a terribly unproductive time. These times are going to be way more productive. So if we have more productivity, that's going to contribute to disinflation or maybe even deflation. And of course, Kathy Woods thinks we're headed for deflation.
Deflation is a very scary prospect. I've said time and time again, deflation is much more serious than inflation. And, the government is going to have a hard time pumping money to counter deflation.
Yeah, you can't. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's very interesting. We have to watch China very closely now to see what happens. We would do ourselves a service to do an analysis, just an historical review of what happened to Japan after the bubble burst in the 80s, and just track its how much money it's printed and where it's gone and what's happened. It'd be very interesting.
Well, we do know, I believe the stat, I think I just saw it, is that their real estate values are in half of what they were before the bust.
Yeah, but the question is, what are people's incomes? What has happened to people's real income?
Right.
What's happened to, it'd be interesting just to track it, because it seems that we're in the same bind that they were in then.
But the difference is, Larry, the reason I mentioned about the interest rate, the value of their property being in half. In California, really in the United States, we're used to these boom busts where the property goes down in half, but then you just wait and it goes back to a new high. In their case, over 30 years, it's half. It's not going back up because they got nobody to move into those homes.
Right, and we unless we do something about immigration seriously, attack them. Anyway, we've been over this several times.
All right. Well, Larry, you're on the road again.
I'm at the All-In Conference this week.
You're All-In Conference. I know. I'm going to be visiting you over at my old stomping grounds at UCLA. Yep. I actually visited about 6 years ago. So this last time I was on those hallowed grounds. But sometime tomorrow. So you're going to be in LA.
I should be there by midday. I should be there by midday. I've got to register on Sunday. So, but I'll be in town by midday tomorrow.
All right. Well, enjoy your drive, and thank you for taking the time to regale our clientele out there, the audience as it is. And maybe we'll have some more reporting tomorrow from live and in person. I'll stand there with my camera and have you talk about the UCLA campus or something. I'm not sure. All right, Larry, thank you so much for being on board. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you. If you don't mind, I do want to pitch my little device here. I have these little devices for $25. You can't believe how cool this is. Look at how thick the stainless. Holy mackerel! It comes in it comes in a camo as well. It's a can opener. I'm sorry, not a can opener, a bottle opener. So you got your bottle opener here too, and it's got a magnet on the back so you can slap it up on your fridge. Is this good or what? So anyway, you just send $25 to my PayPal account. It's down in the information below. Just click on there. You can send it 20. Now, if you're out of the country, I got to charge you an extra $20 for freight. So, or if you join my Patreon, I'll give you one at the $10 level. I'll give you one for free.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.